As you step onto your mat, come towards the back edge and into child pose to settle in, finding where that's comfortable. Taking your gaze inwards, out away from the world, as you let your head rest down on your hands or the floor. Feel free to close your eyes here. Let your breath for the moment just happen, whatever space your breath takes up, whatever pace it makes in your body, and notice it. Notice how you're breathing. Notice if there's any muscular tension in your body, if you're holding tight, maybe from injury or soreness, or maybe for other protective reasons. You're checking in, finding out what you've stepped onto the mat with. And as you shift your passive breathing into active Ujjayi Pranayama, ocean-sounding breath, use the exhales to empty out, not just the carbon dioxide, the old breath from the lungs, but also to empty out what you don't need right now. You can always pick it up later when you step off the mat again, but for right now, think of letting go of whatever weighs down on you, whatever distracts you. And feel the inhales expand into your belly, which presses towards your thighs, into your ribs, which open out multidimensionally. Feeling your low back open, maybe some stretch up into your neck. Feel free to add in a quality or an intention to your in-breath if you'd like to draw something in. Follow your breath. Allow your next inhale to uncurl you. Use that expansion, that levitation to bring yourself up to kneeling. Reset your knees if you need to. As you come upright, bring your arms out and up overhead. Bring your palms together and down along your midline, connecting your thumbs to your sternum in Atmanjali Mudra, prayer position. And connecting your mind to the meaning of the mantra Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Connecting to infinite creative consciousness, divine wisdom within. Breathing in for the first of 3. Release your hands from your heart down to the ground and step your right foot forward. You might have to swing it out to the side. Bring your ankle by your right hand and then curl your left toes under and lift your left leg, coming into high lunge. Take up a lot of space on the mat, reaching your left heel back and lifting your back thigh up to take the bend out of your left knee. Keep some space left to right so you're not on a tightrope. And then feeling for what kind of space do you need front to back, so that when you bend your right knee, it's over your ankle and your hips are about level with your right knee. If you tend to have low arches, and also to help stabilize the front knee, lift your right toes and press the outer edge of that foot into the ground. Give it another breath or two to find how much your legs and core are holding you up so that your arms and shoulders don't have to. If you need more support today, make this a low lunge as we add the wings in. You might need to bring your back knee down if that's where you are today. Bring your right fingertips or palm down to the ground or onto a block, wherever it sets when your upper arm and lower leg are aligned as one unit. Press your right knee into your arm and press back with your arm. Then bring your left hand onto your left ribs and feel your breath in your ribs. Expand your rib cage into your hand. And as you inhale and you open your ribs up away from your right leg, if you want, you can extend your left arm up. Notice, like we did in the standing balance in the last round of practice, how the opening on one side tends to pull the other side. So as you open your left ribs, keep your right knee pressed into your arm. Push back with your arm so your knee stays aligned over your ankle, and then you have a foundation to leverage your twist out of. Feeling the long line from your head, top of your head, to your back heel, and then another long line between your hands. So if you have a lot of weight in your right shoulder, push the ground away with your right hand and open up some space within your right shoulder joint. If your left arm is kinked, if your wrist is pulled back, lengthen through the back of the wrist. Reconnect the shoulder to your back so the opening is from your ribs instead of your arm joints. Use your next exhale to release down. As your fingertips come to the ground, push off with your left foot, step it forward. You might need a few steps to find your feet underneath you. And as you find your feet parallel, about a fist width apart, lift your toes. Grow up through your legs, lifting your kneecaps, lifting your sits bones on the back side. So we're coming into standing yoga mudra. Let your head release down and your arms draw towards each other as you interlace your fingers. Because we tend to be creatures of habit, it's likely that you've interlaced your fingers the same way as last round. So slide all of your fingers over one so your other thumb is on top. That might not make a noticeable change, but it just helps us change habits and create more symmetry in the body. With the arms, it's a combination of drawing your arms inwards towards each other and lifting upwards. So it might be that your palms meet, your wrists meet, and it might not. Find where you're able to lengthen the arms, draw them towards each other, and lift them away from your back, and still breathe. So if it's not breathable, you're too far. Adjust back. And this one tends to feel like you have your arms tied behind your back, so find where you can breathe into that sense of constriction. And the logic of lengthening the front of the thighs is that helps to lengthen the back of the thighs. But if you've had any injury in the low back or hamstrings, or if you have fear there, you're not able to really breathe into where you are, then try bending your knees a little bit. And just finding as much length as you can. You may also need to engage your belly to support your low back more. Give it one more breath, inhaling up through your legs, exhaling down through your spine, letting your head release. And then release your way out of this posture into your high lunge on the left. So bringing your hands down and back by your ankles, your right foot back towards the back edge of the mat, taking up a lot of space on the mat. And when you find that length and the distance left to right where you're stable, then grow into the posture. This is a lunge, so thinking of lunging forward, having the lift and the energy from your back heel to the top of your head. So there's less weight in the hands, and that way when we add in the wings, you're not putting a lot of pressure on your shoulders and your hands. So bringing your left hand down, left upper arm in line with your lower leg, then lift your left toes and press your knee into your arm and push back with your arm so you have a strong alliance to open away from. Bring your right hand to your right ribs and find your breath there. Expand your ribs out into your hand and use your inhale to open your ribs up. Notice if the left knee is following. If the left arch is collapsing, then it's likely the knee is following. So if you tend to have low arches, press the outer edge of the left foot into the ground. When you find the lift, the distance between your hands, and the space in your shoulders and your neck, then find the distance from your back heel, stretching towards the back edge of the mat, to your front knee and the top of your head stretching forward. So a really long line in your body from one end of the mat to the other. Take your gaze where you feel balanced and your neck is open. So you might not look up, you might look down to clear your neck. Use your next exhale to release your right hand down. You might need to be on your fingertips to make this transition. Step your left foot back so it's in line with your right foot towards the back edge of the mat, and look back and see that you have your mountain stance in your feet, even though your heels are off the ground, so your toes line up, about a fist width apart. And then look at your hands and see that the base of your fingers are planted. Your fingers are spread out, wrists are broad, shoulder width apart. From your hands, we're going to grow from there. So bend your knees and then push the ground away with the base of your fingers so your arms lengthen, and move your underarms back towards your feet. Bend your knees deeply and lift your heels high, and then tilt your tailbone up away from your hands so you feel a long line from each hand to each hip. Keeping your knees bent, but tilting your tail up. That may be tricky initially, how to keep your knees bent and lift your heels and tail all at the same time. So notice how when you lift your heels up and bend your knees, that brings your thighs closer to your belly. Use your hands pushing the ground away to bring your belly and thighs closer together. But then notice if your shoulders disintegrate off your back. So refirm your shoulders, give your neck lots of space, and use your next exhale to release your knees down, uncurl your toes, walk your hands back underneath your shoulders for cat and cow, spinal flex from table pose. So planting your wrists broad, shoulder width apart, fingers spread out, push the ground away and arch your back up towards the sky in cat pose, pressing your shins open, letting your head and tail release down and rolling from your tailbone up your spine in a wave-like motion for cow. And when your head lifts, slide your shoulder blades back and then continue with your pace of breathing, using the energy of pushing the ground away to press the air out. And you can amplify that by drawing your belly into your low back, which helps fan open the low back. Noticing on the inhale if your shoulders tend to strangle you. So drawing them down onto your back, giving your neck some space. If you have trouble doing that, your hands may be too far forward or too close together. So this next time that you inhale, plant the palms down and then curl your right toes under behind you on the mat or on the ground and take your right knee off the ground. So you're stretching your right leg long to open the calf muscle. Reach your heel behind your toes. If you want to take this stretch deeper, you can lift your other knee up off the ground. Plant the base of your fingers down onto the ground and your shoulders down onto your back. And finding a line of energy, of intent from your head to your back heel until you feel that stretch in your calf that you can breathe into. So giving that one more breath. Use your exhale to release and switch sides. And finding where your heel is in relation to the toes on that left foot. So if you take your heel towards the big toe side of the foot, what does that affect in your calf? And if you take your heel towards the little toe side, does that feel any different? And if you want to deepen it, you can lift your other knee, make it sort of a half down dog, but check that your shoulders stay on your back and the base of your fingers stay on the ground. And give that calf one more breath. And as you exhale, release your knees and come into toe sit. Curl your toes under, getting your little toes curled under. And as you come up onto your knees or sit back onto your heels if your toes are open, then bring your hands alongside your ribs into chicken. Backs of your hands alongside your upper ribs and elbows forward a bit so you feel the backs of your wrists opening. To amplify that, breathe into your hands. Breathe your rib cage out sideways as you inhale. And then if you want to increase the stretch even more, exhale, and as your rib cage releases back to center, drop your elbows down and shoulders down so you can create a deeper stretch. One more focused breath into the back of your wrists. And now we'll open the underside of the wrist. So bring your hands out. Hold on to the right hand with the left, catching your fingers and your thumb. Relax that elbow next to your ribs so you're focusing on the wrist. And draw the fingers and the thumb back. Think of breathing into the wrist. Switch over to the other side, keeping your ocean-sounding breath flowing. The next time that you exhale, release. You may want to shake your hands out if that feels good. And then release your way forward, keeping your knees together. Uncurl your toes, press the front of your feet down into the ground, and bring your hands a little bit wider than normal for hip circles. So keeping the inner legs together as you take your hips in wide circles, and feel free to shift your hands to where they need to be to help support you in that. Inhale and exhale each circle that you make, getting a sense of your outer hips. The next time that you inhale, change the direction, focusing particularly on taking your hips out towards the sides, but also going back towards your feet and forward towards your hands. Notice if it feels any different on this side in this direction. And then bring your hips back above your knees, keeping your legs together. Walk your hands back underneath your shoulders. We're going to come into cat presses to strengthen the upper back, chest, and arms. So bringing your wrists under broad shoulders, spread your fingers out, plant the base of your fingers, so you may have to lift your wrists to get that connection, and then bring them back down if you did. And then bend your elbows just slightly and tuck them in so that the points of your elbows point towards your thighs instead of off the sides of the mat. Bring your shoulder blades onto your back if they're not already. Lift your belly up into your low back. You can feel your tailbone pointing away from your head, and your low back is long and supported. So as you exhale, bend your elbows to roll across the front of your knees and come forward as though you're going to dive off the front edge of the mat, just coming to the point where you can feel your low back doesn't sag, your shoulders are broad, your elbows are tucked in, and then inhale and come back up. Use your inhale to inflate you, and then your exhale to come forward to get closer to the ground. You're coming down, but not between the hands. It's more about coming forward over your hands, keeping the elbows tucked in so you can feel your upper arms right next to your upper ribs, moving at your pace of breathing. But again, like with the seat of Isis balancing, the slower you go with this, the more strength you're developing in the muscles of your body, and you're also increasing your ability in your breathing practice, your pranayama. Keeping your jaw relaxed. It doesn't matter how far you go. What matters is that you go to the point where you're strongest, where you have integrity. Everything's integrated together. Otherwise, if you're going past that, then you're strengthening in your falling apart place. So focus on strengthening where you're strong instead. This next time that you get to your lowest place, hold. Hold the posture and refine it, but don't hold your breath. So coming forward and down by bending your elbows as though you're leaving your hips behind. Aim your tailbone back, lift your belly up, shoulders on your back, elbows tucked in, breathing steadily. Use your next inhale to come up. And as you lift up, release your feet, keep your hips above your knees, and walk your hands out in front. So we're going to come into puppy dog stretch and open out the triceps and the shoulders. Most likely your hands are going to come off the front edge of the mat, walking your arms out long in front. This is essentially the upper body portion of down dog with the knees on the ground. So you might need a little bit more space between your knees, so you feel your knees are right under your front hips, about fist width apart. Pressing your shins down so you have a good base. Keep your hips right above your knees, or shift back just slightly if that's too much on your kneecaps. And then as you walk your arms out long in front of you, bring your forehead to rest on the ground. When you find where you can rest your forehead on the ground, so it might mean that you have to shift your hips back. If your forehead is really far from the ground, it might be that your shoulders are quite tight. But when you adjust and find where you can rest your forehead on the ground, if your elbows have dropped to the ground, push the ground away with your hands, lengthen your elbows, and feel or imagine long lines from the palm of each hand, through each arm, through the side waist, right to the sits bones. It's really easy here for the belly to drop down, the low back to sag. So keep that little lift in your belly that you had in the cat presses. So your tail is pointing back away from your head. And instead of sagging your low back, drop your chest and your throat and your underarms down towards the ground until you feel the backs of your shoulders, tops of your shoulders stretching. And you can breathe. So it may be that your elbows get closer to the ground, but it's not because they're bending. It's because your shoulders are opening. If you're flexible here and you have your elbows long but they're close to the ground and you want to deepen the stretch, lift your head. Use your next exhale to push the ground away with your hands. Walk your hips all the way back over your heels so you're coming into extended child. Find where your long arms help you tuck in and your hips are back over your heels and your forehead is resting on the ground again. So if that's not easy in this posture, you might need to walk your knees wider. Find where you're grounded, you're released down, hips over your heels, head on the ground. And then coming into Yoga Mudra here. Yoga Mudra means the symbol of yoga. Of all the postures that could be called the symbol of yoga, this is the one, because we elevate the heart above the head and we open the space around the heart. Bring your arms around behind your back, interlace your fingers, draw your arms towards each other and up away from your back, keeping your hips on your heels and your head on the ground. So you're just moving your arms, feeling the muscles of your upper back, draw the shoulder blades in towards the spine, and if you're really flexible and you find that you lift up fairly easily here, reach up with your hands so that your shoulder blades don't slice down into your neck and you keep lots of space in your neck. So you're opening the chest and front by engaging the upper back. This next time that you exhale, release your arms back towards your back, but keep your hands interlaced. Just change the lacing so that you bring your other thumb on top, sliding all of your fingers over one. And then with your next inhale, bring your arms up again. When you find the highest lift that you can breathe into, your neck is clear, take your arms over to one side so that you can feel the opposite shoulder opening. And see if you can connect, locate your breath in that open shoulder, keeping your head centered so you're moving your shoulders on either side of your spine, opening the upper chest and back. Use your next exhale to switch over to the other side. Taking your arms over, still drawing them towards each other and up away from your back, but moving them to the point where you feel that opposite shoulder opening and bringing your breath right up there into your shoulder. Use your next inhale to come back to center, and as you exhale, release your arms, unlace your fingers, and bring your hands to hold onto the heels of your feet. Keep your head on the ground, your hips on your heels for the moment. We're coming into rabbit pose. So if this is new to you, lift up and look so you know where we're headed. If your knees were wide for Yoga Mudra, realign them with your front hips. Get a firm, cupped grip on the heels of your feet, and then tuck your forehead in towards your knees and lift your butt up into the air. Keep hold of the heels of your feet, press your feet and shins down, and lift your butt high enough that your arms lengthen so the bend comes out of your elbows, and you create a stretch across the upper back. You may have to adjust where your head is so that you're on the top of your head, not your forehead, but the very top of the head to keep the neck safe. If you have any neck concerns, you can do the upright version of this instead. So the engagement in the upper back that we just did in Yoga Mudra, you're now stretching open in Sarsangasana, rabbit pose. To keep from putting all of your weight into your head or doing a forward roll, press your shins down and lift your belly up into your low back. And make sure you're on the very top of your head that points up at the sky when you're standing, where your halo would be. And then breathing into your upper back, finding where you can breathe into this little tucked posture. It's like a rabbit diving down into its burrow. Next time that you exhale, release your hips down, let go of your feet, and rest here in child's pose. Your arms resting by your sides and your forehead on the ground, so you might need to adjust to make this comfortable. Letting yourself integrate these postures that you've done, the strengthening, the stretching, finding where you're able to let go of the body and also able to let go of the breath. And yet allowing the natural, easy rhythm of the breath to captivate your attention so that you can let go of any stories in the mind for right now, just for these few moments. Noticing where your attention is. Come back to your breath. Notice if it's coming in or going out. watching the breath happen, also watching the mind happen, watching where it goes. And instead of attaching energy to the stories, letting them move on through the way clouds move through the sky. Let your sense of yourself be broader, like the openness of the sky that the thoughts move through. And carrying with you as you step into whatever is ahead of you, which may be unknown, carrying whatever you'd like to carry with you, any sense of grounding, internal support, or the basic physical support in the body and the breath. Change your breathing, make it more active, bring more space into your rib cage, into your torso. See if you can let your head follow as you uncurl from your pelvis up to sitting, kneeling. And as you're coming upright, let your arms lift out to the sides and up overhead. Taking a breath in. Exhale, come down along your midline, connect to your heart. Acknowledging yourself in your practice and anyone else you're practicing with. Namaste. So with this one, this is the one where I was going to say I'm going to do a demo, so I'll just uncurl and pause for a moment there. And then this is level 6, round 3. We cut there for a second?
Mm-hmm.
The mat is getting all bunched up in the back.
Okay.